Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me along. Very much excited to be talking today about ITSM and AI, and specifically talking about the question of ethics. Now, these two topics, AI and service management, they are rather broad. So there's going to be an element of talking about them today, as I'm sure you can appreciate from a high level. I'm going to get through as much of it as I possibly can, but they are very, very large topics. Now, just to give you a little bit more context about me, thank you again for the intro. I've been working in service management in one way or another for about just shy of 25 years, and I've done a variety of both technical and non-technical roles. I've worked my way through the ranks as a service desk analyst all the way to being part of the senior leadership team as director of service operations and also deputising for the CIO. I've been running my own consultancy business for the last few years, and I've worked with a range of organisations to support them on their service management and leadership journey. These are in a variety of different sectors. Predominantly, my career has been spent in financial services, but in the last few years, I've also worked with MSPs, FTSE 50, retailers, and some organisations in the betting and gaming world. Now, I'm sure you can imagine supporting this evolution and development of my career has also involved AI to some degree. Now, whilst I left my technical roles behind me, I have generally tried to keep abreast of the latest technologies. But there are certain times where I'm not necessarily an expert in AI. I am an expert when it comes to service management. That's a little bit of self-labelling there, but I do have the qualifications to go with it. But I do understand where AI can be used in service management, but also the ethical considerations that need to go along with it. So, as I said, there's going to be a lot to talk about in both the ITSM and AI worlds. So when you combine the two, it's going to be a lot of discussion. We're probably going to stick around to about 30,000 foot view to get like a holistic, objective view of what we're going through here and our time together. But we'll go through as much as possible. So we're going to start with going through an overview of the range of AI technologies available and then move into the ethical considerations. We'll pause to consider bias and fairness from the AI perspective, then dive into the human element, discussing the various areas that must be taken into account when implementing any form of AI in service management. From an internal organisation view, the human element, we'll look at them through the lens of both the customer and the internal colleague, winding our way through to the importance of boundary setting when it comes to decision-making and autonomy for AI, which links us nicely with the view of the legal and regulatory compliance, which is something that we cannot forget when we're talking about any kind of system that we're implementing, be it AI or any other type. Then we'll round that off with some practical strategies and approaches to implement AI in your service management worlds whilst maintaining an ethical standpoint. And at that point, I'll probably pause to take a breath so that you guys can then ask any questions that you may have. So I hope you're all sitting comfortably and we will dive in. So first things first, as I said, let's open the door and start talking about the various AI technologies available in IT service management. Many of the big names like ServiceNow, Freshworks, Jira Service Management, and others are integrating generative AI into their platforms to support service delivery from a service desk perspective and others, and the provision of good customer service. The purpose of introducing AI into service management is to improve efficiency, to automate processes, and to enhance the user experiences so we can see what's on offer, so they can see what's on offer. Over the next couple of slides, I'm going to go through, there's about 14 different AI technologies that I'm sort of highlighting here that can be used in service management. I'm not going to go through all 14 one by one, because otherwise this session wouldn't need to be an hour, it would need to be a lot longer than that. But I'm going to talk about the ones that stand out the most to me when it comes to adding the most value to a service management function and to the customers that you are serving, be they internal or external customers. So these are the first 7. First thing that I want to call out on this one is chatbots and virtual assistants. We have all seen these in use in our day-to-day lives, whether it's where you're working, whether you use it as part of your day-to-day service desk service provision, providing support for your customers, or whether it's your personal life, say you're going to go and buy a new television. it's likely that if you go onto any kind of website where you're buying something, that there's going to be a chatbot or virtual assistant that's going to pop up asking you a question, can we help you today? So let's talk about how this supports service provision. Well, to put it simply, it can be linked to self-help portals and a way for the internal or external customer to seek assistance. So they can type in a question and the AI chatbot can come back, or a virtual assistant can come back with a number of sort of articles or how-to guides for the person to support themselves, so they don't actually then need to go through to the human at the other end of the service desk. This potentially frees up those humans to work on more complex requests and instance, leaving the repetitive tasks to the computers. So the next one is intelligent ticket routing. This is powerful. This is really powerful. And in reality, there is already a lot of automation in service management tooling. AI can route support tickets to the right team or an individual based on the complexity, the priority, and the historical data use about that particular issue type. There's all sorts of things that can happen there. And I would imagine that most people that have any form of off-the-shelf service management tooling will already have some level of automation in there, which is not quite the same as the AI element of it. But again, it's automatic ticket routing, and then the added extra from an AI perspective of intelligent ticket routing. Now, providing you've got everything configured correctly, intelligent ticket routing can be a massive time saver. It can increase efficiency. When you're setting it all up and configuring all the AI in the background, there's a number of considerations and parameters associated with setting these up that you've got to get right. Going back to the time saving and reducing response times, AI can ensure a ticket is sent to the right team in the right timings to meet your response times for that team to then fully triage and investigate the ticket further. It could even do some of the triage itself, depending on what algorithms and AI models you've got set up in the background. Imagine what a difference that it could make, removing the mundane triaging from the service desk, allowing them more time for identification of service improvements, building knowledge. There's already lots of application for people to do self-help when it comes to password resets. Imagine going an extra mile. Another call out before we move on from intelligent ticket routing is, of course, the humans who raise the tickets. It's important that the user base has been effectively communicated to, so that it allows the AI to do the intelligent ticket routing, that there are keywords that it can pick up on that people know to use so that things can happen in the right way. Now, an obvious other one on this slide to call out would be anomaly detection, but I'm going to skip that one because I'd rather refer to AI-powered predictive analytics. Think of the power associated with being able to predict, potentially, incidents, failures, or service degradation and take mitigating actions proactively to protect operational service. I was at an event yesterday talking about operational resilience, and this is something where using information to protect the business as usual activities is incredibly powerful. So using AI-powered analytics to really identify what's going on and stop things, maybe not stop it before it happens, but put the necessary mitigation in place to keep it going forwards, keep that service running. So here we have the next 7. I did promise that there was 14, and again, I won't go through them all. The key ones here for me, knowledge management and auto suggestions. We've already mentioned in the chatbot and the virtual assistants that when somebody types in a question, there can be suggestions that come back saying, hey, have you tried this article? Or we've got this how-to guide that tells you how to do this thing instead. That it's a way for AI to interact with that customer, that internal customer, to give them support. It can suggest solutions automatically. We've also got automation in incident management. So AI can automate the detection, login, and resolution of incidents in real time, minimizing downtime and manual intervention. Another thing to do with automation in incident management, which is something that I've seen in some ticketing tools, which is incredibly powerful. It's a rhetorical question. Hopefully, I can imagine in my head, hopefully people will be nodding. How many people have had challenges when it comes to needing to send a major incident communication to your user base, your customer base, but trying to get the wording right is a real challenge, trying to fit the right tone that meets the right people so that your stakeholders understand what's happened, what's going to happen next, and you're managing that sort of message all the way from people on the shop floor, so to speak, all the way through to the senior executives. There are generative AI integrations in service management tools that can help you write that major incident comms. That, for me, can be an absolute game changer, particularly when I've worked with organisations where I've had to run sessions with the service desk team to coach them on how to write major incident comms. Having that level of automation and generative AI in incident management is incredibly powerful. So then we've got things like the AI-driven asset management. That generally means that you can help manage and optimize IT assets by predicting maintenance needs, monitoring life cycle statuses, and optimizing resource allocation. We've got the automation of change and release management. Now, change and release management is one of my favorite processes, if not my favorite. Sometimes an unpopular view, but I love it. But imagine being able to automate the evaluation and the approvals to some degree and the deployment of changes, reducing the risk of human error in that critical process. Now, this is something that we will talk about later on when it comes to the ethical side of stuff and considerations that you need to take. But imagine being able to have that process run seamlessly so that when you are having to have a human interaction to discuss change and release management, it's a really productive conversation because all of the hard work's been done already. And linked to what I was mentioning briefly on the previous slide about anomaly detection, easy for me to say, we've got proactive maintenance and self-healing systems. AI systems can predict when IT infrastructure might fail and take proactive measures to fix the issue, or even self-heal without human intervention. Now, there's a time and a place associated with that, and you have to be very careful about what you're doing. Again, something that we'll go on to later in this session, but that can be incredibly powerful. Again, doing that, having the AI complete the mundane tasks or the repetitive tasks that can allow the humans to focus on more complex things. So, moving into ethical considerations. What is ethics? What are ethics? For me, it's doing the right thing for the right reasons and ensuring you've taken into account the implications or potential implications of your actions. So, when it comes to the ethical considerations in AI, the way I see it, you've got accountability and transparency, data privacy, and also bias and fairness, which we are going to talk about in its own section. So we're going to look at the first two first. So starting with accountability and transparency. What does that mean? Well, ensuring clear communication on AI decisions. Who is accountable for AI-driven decisions and errors? AI systems, particularly those using complex algorithms like machine learning, it can be hard to understand how those decisions are made, how that programming has been done in order to make those decisions. Where is the human intervention? What things do you need to consider when you are setting up that AI system? From a service management perspective, service management teams must ensure transparency in how AI systems operate, how those decisions are made, and who is responsible for the AI-driven outcomes. Clear accountability frameworks must be established, specifying who is responsible if AI systems make errors and decisions that impact service delivery or customers negatively. When we get to the regulatory and the legal standpoint, this is going to be something that's incredibly important to consider. Data privacy. Pretty much all systems, whether they are AI-driven or not, handle a lot of data. Handling sensitive customer and business data in AI systems needs to make sure that you've got compliance with data protection laws, whether it's GDPR, HIPAA, or others. When it comes to AI and service management, it often relies on large volumes of data, including potentially sensitive personal and business information. So, for example, if somebody's raising a ticket and you've got intelligent ticket routing and somebody has saying, hey, I've got a problem with my HR system, the payroll isn't running, and they attach a file with all the payroll for that particular month to it, there is a serious data privacy concern there. And you've got to consider what What is AI doing with that information? Where is it storing? Do you need to anonymize your data and consider what's in that? So the misuse and mishandling this data can lead to breaches of privacy or violations of data protection regulations, which often have some sort of fine or penalty associated with it, particularly if you're working in a highly regulated environment. So the ethical consideration when it comes to data privacy is organisations must ensure their AI systems comply with data privacy laws like GDPR, and this includes limiting data collection to what is necessary and securing that data in the appropriate way. So we'll talk about bias and fairness in AI systems. Bias and fairness are critical ethical considerations in the use of AI, particularly because AI systems have the potential to reinforce or even amplify existing biases, leading to unfair outcomes. When integrating AI into processes such as IT service management, it's essential to address these issues to ensure equitable and responsible use of the technology. This goes back again to accountability and transparency. And the emphasis again for me is, yes, transparency is important, but accountability, because there's always going to be a human at the end of the day who is going to have to answer to somebody, particularly in a highly regulated environment. When introducing and developing and designing AI systems for service management, you've got to consider what resources are being used for the AI to make decisions and ensuring those resources don't allow for any kind of bias. Bias could be biased training data. AI models are trained on historical data. If this data contains biases, such as favouring certain user groups, demographics, or behaviours, the AI will learn and perpetuate those biases in its decision-making. You've got representation bias. If certain groups are underrepresented in the training data, AI systems may not perform well for those groups, leading to poor outcomes for underrepresented users or scenarios. And this goes into a little bit of the techie side of stuff, which I don't know the ins and outs of, but algorithmic bias. Even with balanced data, the algorithms themselves may behave in biased ways due to the way they process or prioritize certain features over others. So this comes back into the sort of programming, which then links to human bias in development. Biases can be unintentionally introduced by developers when making assumptions, creating labels, or designing the model itself. So there's a lot there in terms of what could happen when it comes to bias. But let's go a little bit more specific into what is AI bias in service management. Well, it can manifest itself in several ways. For example, ticket prioritization. AI might unfairly prioritize tickets based on factors like the language used, the location of the user, or the department they belong to, rather than the actual urgency or importance of the issue. I'm pretty sure that all of you will have worked in organisations where you know that there's always one department that is going to raise its hand and say, this is super, super important. You've got to respond right now. And if you don't, there'll be an escalation to the senior leadership. What if AI has learned that from the historical data that that's what happened? This particular user group has response times that are faster than anyone else. Is it because the tickets are actually easier to work through, or is it because there's some form of bias? Performance evaluation. AI systems could provide biased evaluations of support agents' performance based on biased interpretations of user feedback or historical data. And then another example of AI bias in service management is service recommendations. The AI tools might recommend solutions that work well for some users, but not for others, depending on how well their specific needs are represented in the training data. Again, it all goes back to that training data and making sure that there is no bias in there and it's as fair as possible. So how do we address bias and fairness concerns? This is not an exhaustive, can't say that word. This is not the entire list. There is more to it than this, but I've picked out the key ones to me that I think are things that need to consider. We're going to start with diverse and representative data. If an AI system is used to classify support tickets, the data used to train the AI should include a wide range of ticket types from various departments, from users of different backgrounds and from different geographic locations to give it as wide an information and resource pool as absolutely possible. The more knowledge, the better. Then we've got bias audits and testing. In service management, Testing how the AI prioritised tickets from various departments or user groups can highlight any biases in how the system handles service requests. Then this one's one of my favourites, human-in-the-loop systems. Before finalising ticket prioritisation, you can have a human agent, a person at the end of the computer who could review the AI-generated list to ensure that there is no department or user group, no department or user group is unfairly deprioritised based on irrelevant factors. Basically, you're having somebody making sure that the AI is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Context and transparency, there's that word transparency again linked to accountability. If a ticket is routed or prioritised in a certain way by an AI system, it should be clear to both the user and the service desk team why AI made that choice. This could help identify and rectify any biases in the system. If you cannot understand the reason why the decision was made, then that's something to investigate and understand further. Design and fairness metrics. In an AI-driven ticket routing system, fairness metrics might involve ensuring that all departments or user demographics receive equitable response times, rather than routing all high-priority issues to a single department. Metrics with this sort of thing, it's not going to be an easy way to measure, particularly based on how the AI system is configured, but it is a consideration that you need to make. Inclusive and diverse skilled development teams. So we mentioned earlier on about the potential risk of the human developers, the people that are doing the development of the system. There may be an element of bias, unconscious bias potentially. What you need to have is squads of people with differing skills that will support the creation of a well-rounded service management system that will take into account a holistic view and not just designing to meet a requirement. So from an AI perspective, if you're building an entire service management piece of tooling that has lots of different AI integrations associated with it, you need the people who can do the chatbot development. You need the people who can do the intelligent ticket routing. You need everybody, at least one person in there. So you've got from each group representing, so that you've got a holistic and a well-rounded view of what it is you're doing. And then, of course, the one at the top, monitoring and feedback loops. After deployment, AI systems should be continuously monitored for fairness and bias. Feedbacks from users and employees can also help identify cases where the AI may not be acting fairly. So implementing or considering each of these points and more, this is how you can address fairness and bias concerns when it comes to introducing AI systems in service management. So let's talk a little bit about the people. One of the obvious concerns or ethical considerations is what happens to the people. If you're introducing AI to drive more efficiency, more productivity, to remove mundane tasks, what about that human element? The use of AI in service management has a significant impact on the workforce, bringing both opportunities and challenges. As AI tools increasingly automate tasks, streamline operations, and enhance decision-making, the roles of the IT professionals are obviously going to evolve. Now, there's all sorts of different ways that there are ethical considerations and impacts when it comes to the human element and what that means if you're introducing AI systems in service management. I've just called out 5 of them, which we'll just go through now. So the automation of routine tasks. AI systems, such as chatbots, robotic processes like RPA, and automated ticket systems, they can handle routine, repetitive tasks that would otherwise require human intervention, such as password resets, which I mentioned before, ticket categorization, basic troubleshooting, and common requests. Now, having worked on a service desk, some of these tickets used to drive me potty because it was just the same thing day in, day out. There was a time when I worked on a service desk where, it was a long time ago, there was a mainframe where you had to type in probably around 18 different characters of code before you could get to the bit with a password reset. I was so used to doing it, I could do it in my sleep, I could do it with my eyes closed, I didn't need to look at the instructions. It was monotonous, it was time consuming. If AI had existed then, I would have saved myself a little bit of a repetitive strain injury from typing that same piece of code every time. The workforce effect of AI and automation of routine tasks is the automation frees up IT staff to focus on more complex and high-value tasks, such as strategic planning, system architecture, resolving critical incidents, problem management, a whole variety of other things, including service improvement. But it also means there's a potential impact on some of the entry-level roles. So again, going back to when I started on a service desk, I had no IT experience whatsoever, apart from a brief dalliance using a computer at university. Learning these basic things, these things that are now potentially going to be automated, gave me an opportunity to learn how to work in a technology department, how to work on a service desk, and get a good understanding of the day-to-day interactions with the user base. So as much as it does take away some of the mundane things, there's also a risk when it comes to entry-level people coming in. Then we've got the shift in skill requirements. As AI takes on more operational tasks, IT professionals need to develop new skills to work effectively alongside these technologies. The ability to manage, monitor, and fine-tune AI systems becomes critical. Knowledge in these areas, such as machine learning, data analysis, AI system maintenance, and algorithm development, becomes increasingly valuable. Now, I've already said, for me personally, all of this technology, this didn't exist when I was a techie. Now that I'm somebody that I work predominantly in just service management more than anything else, I need to understand it, but that's not a role that I can take. So you've got to make sure that the workforce are skilled in the appropriate way in order to manage these things. So the shift in these required skill sets often pushes employees toward more specialised roles. IT staff may need to go through further training or reskilling to keep pace with the integration of the AI technologies. And the demand for soft skills, one of the most important, such as critical thinking and problem solving and human to AI collaboration, is also going to increase, because the humans need to be able to handle exceptions and understand those nuanced tasks that AI can't manage. Critical thinking, to me, is possibly one of the most important power skills that you could possibly have, because there isn't enough of it, particularly because of this day and age when there is so much technology that does things for us. People get used to not thinking about it as much. So then we've got job definition or redefinition potentially, and evolution. Many roles within service management may need to be redefined. Now, what I will say before I go into a little bit more detail on this, service management and the roles within service management differ from organisation to organisation. Some organisations, the service desk, the desktop support, and the entire support function falls within the remit of service management, whereas in others you have service delivery managers, change managers, incident managers that do the higher level things from a management and a process perspective, separating the technical from the service management. So when we're talking about the potential impact on roles and definitions for individuals, it will depend on each organisation. But for example, if we have service desk agents who previously handled a large volume of low complexity tickets, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied today, they may see their role shift towards managing escalations, more complex troubleshooting, and improving AI, which then goes back to the skill requirements, because you can potentially, if it's somebody who's entry level who hasn't had the skills or the technical training to be able to do the more complex tickets, they're going to need to be shown and taught how to do that. Whilst AI automation may reduce the need for traditional service desk roles, it may not as well. It creates the opportunities for more analytical and strategic positions. Employees potentially will increasingly act as overseers of AI systems, ensuring that they're operating correctly and addressing any issues that the AI can't do by itself. The human role potentially evolves from task execution to higher level management, strategy, and system optimization. Then we've got improved productivity and efficiency. AI can significantly boost productivity by streamlining some of the processes, reducing downtime potentially, and speeding up resolution times. Predictive analytics powered by AI, which we mentioned earlier on, can proactively identify potential service disruptions, allowing the support teams to prevent the problems before they occur. Oh my gosh, I wish that was something that existed back when I was a service delivery manager. That would have given me so many fewer headaches. That increased efficiency and productivity allows IT professionals and service management professionals to focus on innovation, on process improvements and value-added tasks, rather than firefighting routine issues. Things have already happened to save the day. The shift enables employees to contribute more strategically to the organisation's success and helps drive continuous improvement. And then we've got colleague morale and job satisfaction. I've just noticed a typo on my deck. I will change that at some point. The introduction of AI can lead to mixed reactions from people. Obviously, some people will be very nervous that, oh my gosh, we're going to be using AI now. Does that mean my job is no longer required? What's going to happen to me? Whereas others might find the opportunity is really exciting and gives them an opportunity to do more things, to get more involved. But the most important thing here to remember is your people. Regardless of what efficiencies and productivity metrics you're working towards, or you want to increase any kind of resolution times or response times, your employees are the most important thing in an organisation. Even, in my opinion, even more important than your customers, because without your colleagues, without your workforce, then how are you going to be delivering any services in the first place? What it should actually be, when you're doing any kind of cultural shift from using the way you used to work to using AI systems, is managing the cultural shift effectively, making sure that the employees feel that AI is augmenting their abilities rather than replacing them, making sure they're involved in the conversations, making sure they understand what AI is going to be doing, opening the communication and transparency, again, that word transparency, and opportunities for them for reskilling to help mitigate any concerns that they may have. So now we're going to go into the customer experience and trust side of things with AI and the ethical concerns here. Now, this is actually very interlinked to the employee perspective in terms of the human element. The use of AI in customer service, particularly in IT service management, can significantly enhance the customer experience by offering faster response times, more efficient processes, potentially, and personalised services. However, it also raises concerns related to customer experience and trust. These concerns are often issues of transparency, again that word, over-reliance on automation, data privacy concerns, and potential errors. And it's important to address these concerns to ensure the customers feel valued and confident in interacting with them. So some typical things that a customer may feel when it comes to understanding that AI is going to be more used in a service that you're providing them from a service management perspective is they may feel concerned about the lack of human interaction. They may feel frustrated when dealing with AI-driven systems such as chatbots. For example, I was in a chatbot loop the other week when I was trying to get some support for something that I had purchased that wasn't working correctly. And it didn't seem to matter what combination of things I was asking the AI chatbot. It was just sending me round and round a loop. I just got to the point where I was just saying, speak to a human, until it got the gist that actually I needed to speak to a person. From a customer perspective, that was incredibly frustrating. Whilst it won't necessarily stop me from using that supplier again, it does give me pause for thought, because that wasn't a very good service. It was impersonal and it was frustrating. So if a customer feels like they're interacting with a system that cannot fully understand or address their concerns, their trust in the service provider may decrease. And certainly repeated negative experiences may lead to customers wanting to avoid those services altogether. So again, we've got transparency as well. Customers may not understand how AI decisions or recommendations are being made. This can lead to mistrust, especially if the customers believe the AI is making decisions that's not in their best interest. There is a concern about the over-reliance on AI and the loss of human touch. Combining those two previous things and the fact that using AI may lead to a reduction in human oversight, particularly for complex or more specific problems. Automated systems may fail to recognise situations that require empathy, emotional intelligence, or creative problem solving, leading to poor customer experiences. There's a concern from a customer experience perspective that AI systems are not perfect. They can make mistakes. They may misinterpret customer requests. They may provide incorrect information, or they make biased decisions. These errors will frustrate customers and cause them to lose faith in service. Even a few errors or poor outcomes can lead to significantly affected customer trust, especially if they feel that the service fails to deliver accurate or fair results. We've mentioned bias and unfair treatment already. We've also mentioned data security and privacy concerns. A customer may be worried about how their personal information is being collected, how it's stored, how it's going to be used by AI systems, especially in the light of the increased sort of publicity when it comes to data breaches or misuse of data. And then you've got a concern around the inconsistent service experience. AI systems may provide inconsistent service depending on the context, the data availability, or the complexity of the issue. Customers may encounter a varied response in quality and effectiveness, leading to an unpredictable experience. So then if the customer has experienced that inconsistency, they may be then feeling like they can't trust the reliability of the service, making it harder to establish further trust. Customers value consistency in service quality and may turn away if the AI systems cannot provide this. So what do you do about that? What you do is you need the personal touch and empathy, which seems like a little bit of a contradiction when we're talking about AI. But human AI collaboration, a hybrid approach, is really important, certainly when it comes to customer loyalty and addressing all of those concerns that could potentially exist. So if you implement a hybrid model where AI handles routine or low-level tasks, but humans are available to manage more complex issues or provide personalised support, customers should always then have the option to escalate issues to a human agent if they prefer. This approach ensures that AI enhances the service rather than replacing the human touch entirely. By combining AI efficiency with human empathy and problem solving, organisations can provide a more balanced and responsive service. Going back to the example that I said about me the other week, where I went round and round in a loop, it took far too long for me to get through to a human. It was incredibly frustrating. Whereas if they had designed their chatbot and the escalation in a human-centric and an empathy-based approach, then maybe I wouldn't have been as frustrated. Then we've got personalisation and empathy. AI can be used to personalise customer interactions by analysing past interactions, preferences, and behaviours. However, organisations need to ensure that AI also incorporates empathetic responses where appropriate and can recognise when a human touch is needed. Again, understanding where there needs to be that human in the loop. Where do we need to involve a person to actually validate what's happening here and support the customer? Personalised AI services make customers feel valued. While empathetic interactions help build a sense of trust and understanding, customers are more likely to remain loyal if they feel their needs are met on an individual level. Then we've got error monitoring and human oversight. Establishing robust monitoring mechanisms to detect AI errors and intervene when necessary is really important. AI systems should be continuously improved through feedback loops that allow for real-time corrections. Human agents should be able to review AI decisions, particularly for high-stakes scenarios or complex issues. You need to have clear communication of AI involvement. Let your customers know that they're interacting with AI versus a human agent. This sets expectations for the customer. They'll know what they're dealing with and can adjust their expectation of what extent of service is being provided. Another really great example of this that would be really useful is if you phone a customer service desk and it's got any kind of automation in the background, it's not necessarily AI, but if you've got any automation in the background, I personally think that you should warn your customer that that's what they're going to be doing. So, you know, the thing where you say, press 1 if you want to speak to such and such, press 2 if you want your issues to do with whatever else. You can go in a loop with that. And I often end up going around in a horrific loop, and all I want to do is just speak to a person. I end up pressing the 0 key so I can get through to somebody. So then what? We've spoken about the human element, we've spoken about the customers. We now need to talk a little bit about AI decision-making and autonomy. The sign here, the picture, is kind of a little bit alarmist. It's not supposed to be. The whole purpose of me including this slide particularly is because it's not saying stop and don't do anything else. When it comes to the introduction of AI in service management tooling or service management full stop, it's just being prepared to stop. It's just taking a breath, having a look, making sure that you understand what you're doing before going forwards. So establishing boundaries for AI autonomy in IT service processes and ensuring human oversight exists in critical service decisions is essential for maintaining control and accountability, that word again, and quality in IT service management. AI can enhance efficiency by automating routine tasks and support decision-making, but without the appropriate limits, it may lead to errors, bias, or undesirable outcomes, especially in complex or high-stakes scenarios. So how do we establish boundaries for AI autonomy in service management? Well, we need to define the scope of AI's responsibilities within service management, helping ensure that the AI operates within its limitations and enhances human roles rather than replacing them entirely. This can be achieved through a combination of policy making, system design, and strategic planning. So we can define task categories, the automation of repetitive tasks, allowing AI to fully automate low-risk repetitive tasks such as password resets, instant categorization, and so on. These tasks are ideal for automation because they allow for predefined rules and require minimal contextual understanding. But then there's the human-led critical decisions, where you want to restrict AI from making high-stake or mission-critical decisions independently. The tasks that involve that level of judgment on complex thinking, critical thinking, ethics, or even customer-specific needs, you want to make sure that AI can provide the data suggestions, but the human should always make that final decision. They're the ones that are accountable. They're the ones that need to make the decision. You need to set guidelines for AI use. So automation thresholds, for example, establishing rules for when AI can take action independently versus when it requires that human approval. For example, AI may automatically close tickets for simple issues, but must flag when critical incidents for human review before proceeding with the resolutions. So a classic example there is if you've got a P4 incident where it was a very simple incident and it's been dealt with super easily, that's great. But then you've got a P1 incident that needs the root cause analysis. It needs to be verified that it was actually resolved. You wouldn't want AI to automatically resolve a P1 incident or a major incident. You'd want that human element to check it over. Another boundary is risk and complexity assessment, implementing systems that measure the complexity or risk level of a task. If the task exceeds a certain complexity or a risk threshold, it should be routed through to a human for the human to ratify it, to understand what needs to happen. So setting in these thresholds is really, really important. Role-based access controls assign specific levels of AI autonomy based on user roles or departments. For example, service desks might interact with AI systems that automate tier 1 support, while more senior engineers handle escalations that require manual intervention. This makes sure that the AI doesn't overstep into areas reserved for more experienced staff. Again, going back to the human element and making sure that you are not making your workforce obsolete, but you're augmenting what they can do and enhancing what they do, allowing them to focus on more complex issues. And then when it comes to scalability and exceptions, maybe you don't want to throw in a full-on AI delivery in all of your services day one. Maybe you want to start with iterations, maybe begin by implementing AI in less critical areas and gradually increasing the responsibilities it has as trust and reliability are built. But at each stage, you're analysing the performance to determine if the AI is operating effectively and within its boundaries. So here we have some decision makings. How do we ensure human oversight in critical service decisions? While AI can support decision making in service management, maintaining that human oversight ensures that important ethical, contextual, and customer specific considerations are applied. Again, I'm repeating the same message again here, but AI should complement, not replace human expertise in critical areas. So I mentioned earlier on the human in the loop systems, continuous human involvement. Human in the loop systems ensure that humans are involved to review and approve key decisions. Basically, this is something incredibly important in incident management, as I was just talking about before with the P1 incident, but also like things like security breaches, change management processes where human judgment and expertise is critical. The AI is only good as the model and the information that you've given it. There is nothing that can be replaced with that respect when it comes to humans. You want to consider things like an approval workflow, using AI to assist in analysing data and providing recommendations, but require human approval before executing actions in critical situations. Another decision is defining critical decision points. When would you need to do manual intervention? Defining those specific points in the service processes where AI must hand off control to the human operator. So it might be major incident escalations, like I said before, and security incidents, any task that involves customer-specific requirements or legal implications, tasks that maybe require cross-departmental coordination. AI can handle a lot of routine incident management, but if the issue escalates, has it been taught with how to handle that? And it should automatically route the cause to a human supervisor for the human to take play and make that decision. You need monitoring and auditing of AI decisions, conducting regular audits of AI to make sure, and those decisions it makes, to ensure that they're aligned with organisational policies and the customer needs. This includes how AI handles service requests, ticket prioritisation and incident resolution. You want to identify errors and biases quickly, and any deviations from what you've set up in your parameters to make the necessary adjustments and service improvements. From a continuous improvement perspective, you want to implement feedback loops where the human element, the people who work there, the actual physical humans, they can review the AI performance and review feedback. Say, actually, we wouldn't have done it this way. We would have done it this way. So maybe we want to consider the algorithm. Maybe we want to take a different approach with how this works. You want to install fail-safe triggers, emergency stop mechanisms, creating that fail-safe or kill switch mechanism that allows human operators to override or shut down AI processes in the case of unexpected behaviour or errors. This is making sure that there isn't some sort of autonomous escalation of issues or harm caused without human intervention. It's establishing clear protocols for when your escalation issues to humans, when the AI reaches its decision-making boundaries or fails to resolve an issue. Then you've got the training and reskilling of staff. From a decision-making point, if you are running a service management function or you're delivering services in any way, shape or form, you need to understand, what does that mean to your workforce? What do you need to change in order to make sure that the IT teams, the technology teams can effectively supervise, manage and correct any of the AI systems, including understanding when AI should be trusted to operate independently and when human intervention is needed. To establish boundaries for AI autonomously in ITSM and ensure human oversight in critical decisions, organisations must strategically define the scope of AI responsibilities, implementing human-in-the-loop systems, like I said, regularly auditing the AI performance. By allowing AI to handle routine tasks whilst reserving critical decisions for humans, organisations can strike a sweet balance between automation efficiency and human expertise. And then the people, your colleagues, your employees, the human operators should have clear oversight of mechanisms, approval workflows, and any escalation processes to manage the situation where AI falls short or requires contextual judgment. This ensures a controlled and ethical approach to AI integration in service processes. So here we go into the bit of a scary zone, rules and regulations, compliance. It's important to understand the situation here and what it means for you and your organisation from an ethical use of AI, not just from a customer perspective, but also from a legal perspective. A lot of this is going to depend on the industry sector that you're in and the country where the business is operating and any associated governing bodies, governments, laws, and so on. So here are some areas of consideration. Data privacy and protection. AI systems often rely on processing large volumes of sensitive data, as we've already discussed, including customer information, employee data, IT system logs. Improper use of this data, of handling this data, can lead to privacy violations. Some of the relevant regulations are the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR in Europe, or the California Consumer Act, CCPA in the US, and other data protection laws impose strict rules on how personal data must be collected, stored, and processed. Now, again, on this slide, you'll see points 2, 3, and 4. We've gone through them to a degree. Accountability and liability and bias and fairness, we've discussed these already. But when understanding who is accountable when things go wrong, when AI makes wrong decisions, is vital. You need to ensure your AI implementation doesn't impinge or infringe on any anti-discrimination laws, for example, aiming to prevent any bias in workplaces and services, Transparency, again, there are links to GDPR and other pieces of legislation that protect data. When we're talking about industry-specific regulations, things to consider. Are you working in a highly regulated environment, such as banking and finance or gaming? Do you understand the regulatory requirements to operate in that industry? If you're using AI, does the implementation comply with those pieces of legislation? Is there any form of consideration for DORA, which comes into play in early 2025? What about Sarbanes-Oxley in the United States? You need to ensure you've done your homework, ensure that any AI system you've used comply with those things, because if you don't, they come with significant fines or prosecution if not adhered to, and you have to evidence that you've done all of the necessary controls and so on are in place. You've got security risks, where there's the concern that AI systems can present additional security vulnerabilities, and those people who do the hacking and exploit security weaknesses, they may target AI algorithms or try to manipulate the data that the AI models use, which may result in inaccurate or malicious outputs or decisions from the AI. Cybersecurity laws and regulations, such as the European Network and Information Security Directive and the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act in the US, require organizations to protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks, including AI-driven systems. Service management systems using AI need to be designed with security in mind. You may think this is an obvious consideration, but I have, and I'm sure you have, all worked in organisations where service management and information security are often the last thought. New projects come all the way down the line. It may even get through to the change advisory board before information security and service management are consideration. Services aren't always designed collaboratively across the wider technology function. But if you're using AI, or in fact, if you're doing anything when it comes to the design of services, you cannot risk excluding functions. You've got to take into consideration any security risks. Intellectual property and ownership. This is a consideration no matter whether you're using AI or not. For example, for this presentation today, I needed to do quite a lot of research into the various different implementations of AI in service management. And I have used AI to help me do that. But I'm also aware that I need to make sure that I've ratified that information, that I've correctly fact-checked, so that anything that I'm saying is correct and I'm not giving you guys false information, that I need to investigate and have a clear understanding, because ultimately I'm the one presenting this information to you, therefore I'm accountable. I need to make sure that I can say, yes, actually, I know that that's correct. So you've got to be aware of intellectual property and ownership. Where is your AI getting the information from? And of course, we've discussed in the human element that you've got to ensure you're not breaking any employment or labour laws with the use of your AI. So, what are the key strategies and takeaways? Well, you need clear guidelines for the ethical use of AI. Do you need an AI ethics policy? You probably need to involve stakeholders from across the business. Basically, you need to define a clear framework and principles under which you're going to use AI, certainly when it comes to service management and anything else, to be perfectly honest. You need to ensure data privacy and protection. You've got to abide by the law. You've got to protect your company, you've got to protect your colleagues, and you've got to protect your customers, not necessarily in that order. You want to mitigate bias and promote fairness. You want to train AI models using diverse, representative data to reduce any potential bias in decision-making. You want to perform regular audits. Can you implement any bias detection that can flag when decisions seem biased and then take necessary actions? You want to implement human-in-the-loop systems. Involve the humans, involve the humans, involve the humans. Implement auditing and validate, ratify the decisions AI is making. Make sure people have oversight and control of complex decision. You want to ensure there's clear escalation paths for those situations where AI might find ambiguous or complex. Again, it goes back to that accountability piece, which I'll get to. That's my last one here as well. You want to audit and monitor regularly. Cannot say this enough. You've got to ensure that everything is working as expected, that everything is set up in the right way. Where things change in the organisation that could impact AI decision-making, you've got to check that the AI models are updated accordingly, kind of like regression testing. You often test the entirety of the service even when you just change one small part. The same thing applies here with AI. You've got to make sure that it stays relevant. You want to protect jobs and reskill your colleagues. As I said before, your employees are your most important asset in an organisation. You need humans to build the AI systems and teach it. You need humans to check that AI is doing what it's supposed to be. You can use AI to remove some of the mundane, repetitive tasks, but you need humans to keep it on the straight and narrow. It's unlikely in service management that you can do without humans. You need your colleagues to be happy in the workplace, and supporting their growth and development is key. You want to provide consent mechanisms. You want to implement potentially opt-in, opt-out mechanisms for AI-driven services that affect people directly. For example, customers might opt to interact with a human agent if they prefer, rather than having to go through the chatbot loop. Or employees might want to choose how much AI support they want for routine tasks. Implementing those feedback loops, informing people when AI is being used in decision-making. And of course, I've banged on about this for quite a bit, but you want to promote accountability. You've got to make sure there is accountability for AI's actions and decisions in service management, ensuring that someone in the organisation is responsible for overseeing AI performance. Have people whose role it is to ensure the use of AI is ethical. Who is doing that check? Make it somebody's responsibility to check that, and someone that they report into who is accountable for it. Implement those fail-safe mechanisms, such as kill switches or emergency escalation, just in case we have a Skynet situation and the AI goes rogue. You don't want that to happen. Anybody who works in a regulated environment will talk about the importance of risk management and accountability that can be evidenced and assured.